Final Fantasy IX is one of the best openings in the series. I'm not just talking about the opening movie, I mean the first hour or so, all the way from the credits to the escape from Evil Forest, until the game lays down its major pieces and sets itself firmly on a course. Yeah, there are other standout openings in the series, but in my eyes 9 achieved something monumental, perfectly juggling not one, not two, but 4 main POV characters in its opening sequence. And that's not all. In the opening we're introduced to the great city of Alexandria, and we see it from both sides of the class divide. We set up the conflict between Zidane and Steiner, the hints of intrigue between Zidane and Princess Garnet, the childlike innocence and mystery of Vivi, the introduction of Queen Bran and her loyal servants, the camaraderie of the Tantalus gang whom Zidane is a part of at the beginning but then leaves behind. We're firmly shown what makes this game different to Final Fantasy VII and Final Fantasy VIII, and there's even hint at key magical concepts which make this world unique. The game does most of this within the space of an hour. An hour? In Final Fantasy VIII, after an hour you're still stuck in tutorial land. In 13 you're...
When's the wedding, lover boy?
Yeah. Fade in. A boat adrift, helpless in a storm, at the mercy of the wild ocean. Thunderous waves disappear in a flash, only a haunting memory. In less than 60 seconds, without a single word spoken, we've established that Garnet is royalty and that she carries a dark past, the grief lingering on. Through the window the city of Alexandria unfolds. The birds take us out to the mist, a hint of the magical element that covers this world. The mist sounds almost alive, like vanquished souls crying out, a nod to what's to come, a mere taste of what's behind the curtain. We cut back to birds as they guide a foreign visitor far outside the city perimeter. The Prima Vista airship sails the mist, enters Zidane, and so casually when compared to his PlayStation predecessors, who marked their arrivals with great fanfare. Instead, his entrance is carefully understated so as not to make it all the more jarring when we switch characters in a few moments' time. After the briefest of tutorials, which serves to introduce the key members of Tantalus in an action-orientated way, we come to the inciting incident, the idea that kicks off the story, a mission to kidnap the princess. It's like something out of Mission Impossible as the Tantalus members go through their plan to kidnap Garnet. The stakes wouldn't seem nearly as impressive if we hadn't opened on that shot of Alexandria Castle, its size and majesty dwarfing their daring ambition, and Princess Garnet, their target, the lonely soul waiting in the tower. What a brave story choice to establish us, the player, as the would-be kidnapper. That's not how video game plots are supposed to work. The camera tilts down from the clouds, back into the city where Vivi watches in awe as the Prima Vista grumbles overhead. In one shot, his childlike wonder exemplified, and judging by his reaction, we know that this is not something he sees every day, and so too, the people of Alexandria are thrilled and transfixed. This is no routine airship or visit. Even this NPC can't decide between repairing the roof or watching the ship come in. A stunning shot of the airship approaching the camera dead on, only to reveal it's caught in the mirror of the castle's great tower. The camera pulls back, the music reaches a crescendo, the title appears, all to say, without dumping acres of exposition on you, that the premise has been proposed, the setup is now in place, and the story can begin. We spend some time with Vivi, and the game starts to show how good it is at keeping the story twisting and turning in small and interesting ways, gently nudging the ball forward. Vivi has a ticket for this all-important play somehow, but it's a fake. Down on his luck, Vivi meets a street rat who says he can get him into the play. Vivi goes along, but once they make their risky entrance, they're caught by the guards, so they try to escape, but Vivi ends up becoming part of the play. An example of a character starting out with a want, and that want being realised in a surprising and entertaining way, while serving to bring Vivi closer to his need, meeting up with Zidane and beginning the journey to discover his identity. Rewinding the clock a little, in the palace we have Garnet and Steiner in their normal world of Alexandria. As the Tantalus gang set up their performance, the dynamic between Steiner and Garnet is communicated without words. With only a look, we see the level of devotion, the level of concern the knight has for the princess. Next to Garnet is the imposing presence of Queen Bran, her alien physicality leagues away from the princess. If we've been paying attention, alarm bells are going off in our minds. Something isn't quite right with this setup. Garnet's mind is distant, the woman in her memory is not Bran. Out of sight, but in the back of our minds, the boat is still spinning in that ocean, a truth to be discovered. In the background and quite subtly, Queen Bran's portrait shows little maternal instinct, clutching a strange animal instead. There's no hint of family in this castle. There's no lengthy dialogue between Bran and Garnet of the type you'd expect, a disobedient teenager and an angry mother. Instead, they do not share a single word, yet the game has succeeded in emphasizing the uneasy relationship. As the Queen's indulgent nature is observed, we meet her annoying gestures in a scene that showcases Steiner's Jobsworth nature, but also his sensitivity. Even in the following little interaction between Steiner and Bran, and even though it's set up as a throwaway line to let you choose the character's name, it sets up a shred of tension between the two, planting the idea that Bran doesn't respect him as much as Beatrix, despite his best intentions, meanwhile laying the ground for Steiner and Beatrix's rivalry, which plays out in interesting ways later in the story. Steiner's Knights of Pluto are lazy and disobedient, while providing comic relief. Using the Knights as a mirror, the writers are telling you more about Steiner's character and the level of respect he commands inside the castle. Thrown into this royal world are the interlopers Zidane and Vivi, who together manage to upset the status quo, Zidane bringing deception and Vivi bringing terrifying magic, dragging this Alexandria night off its ordinary course. Zidane has come to take Garnet away, a direct threat to Steiner's world, who, devoted to his oath of servitude, just wants things to stay the same. He wants Garnet in her rightful place. When the princess goes missing, he panics, and unable to elicit help from his knights, he desperately searches the castle. The great twist, however, is that Garnet was planning to steal herself away. She has her own goal, and she's not just waiting for action to occur. She takes the royal pendant and makes her daring escape onto the Prima Vista airship. I should mention that while all this is going on, we have a story within a story unfolding. I Want to Be Your Canary is playing to the masses, both to the Alexandrian elite and the lower class who climbed their rooftops and sat out under the stars. Although the play's story is of little consequence, its presence helps illuminate the main characters. When Garnet becomes wrapped up in the production, she shows her playful side, more than willing to improvise to sell it to onlookers, while Steiner, having arrived on stage, is suddenly rendered perilous and statuesque at the events unfolding around him. When Garnet's character is impaled, Steiner believes it's real and falls to his knees. He's clueless, a warrior, and the game uses the play as a fun way of showing these sides to these characters. Remember I said earlier how the game keeps turning in unexpected ways? We came to kidnap the princess, only for her to kidnap herself. The Prima Vista tries to escape, but Queen Bran's jubilance turns to rage, lashing out in startling ways. The conflict builds and builds, escalating wildly out of control. The airship seemingly escapes a devastating bomb, but it sinks beneath the mist, crashing into evil forest. As Zidane, Steiner and Vivi team up to rescue Garnet from the clutches of the forest's wicked flora, key character relationships are laid down. Zidane is instantly protective over Vivi and asserts his position as the main character by being the one with a plan, the one with the clearest compassion to protect others. Faced with a choice between Tantalus and leaving the princess to fend for herself in the darkness of Evil Forest, he chooses to part ways with his old friends. Meanwhile, Steiner gets locked in a room with the Garnet doll, a cruel reminder of his failing, a clever visual tool to keep Garnet in the room. In an effort to rescue the princess, Steiner and Zidane decide to get Vivi's help. Both try to build the young mage's confidence. Steiner's efforts seem born out of both respect and a fear of the unknown. He calls Vivi Master Vivi. Final Fantasy IX's opening offers us one more exciting twist. Just as the team rescue Garnet, the forest turns to stone in a last-ditch effort to trap the heroes. Now mentally and physically detached from Tantalus and Alexandria, the team turn their eyes to the world map. The training wheels come off, and we are set free in one of the most beautiful transitions. The breathtaking world map theme plays, and if you're anything like me, you sit back, overcome by the music and everything that has come to pass. And there you have it, probably the very best opening to a Final Fantasy game in my opinion. By the end of the opening sequence, the characters have moved from one place to another, in the space of a single night. Zidane was a thief on another job, but now he's self-exiled from his band. Vivi was alone. He came to Alexandria to see an exciting story, but now has become wrapped up in a real-life adventure. Steiner was comfortable in his ordinary world of castle duty, but his reality has been shaken as he's forced to navigate unscrupulous characters and deadly monsters to protect the princess. And Garnet began her story with sadness, but now she's taken agency of her own destiny. While making this video, I realised there are a lot of echoes of 9's opening in the early stages of Final Fantasy XII. Both involve a character infiltrating a palace to steal or kidnap something, during an event which involves a villain. Both involve the character crossing paths with new supporting characters as part of that operation. Both involve an escape that ultimately fails and sees them crashing into a far more wicked place. Both involve a princess who wants to flee from the palace. I like Final Fantasy XII a great deal, but there's a lot of content to get through in the early sections, like setting up the gambit and hunting systems, before things really kick off. And of course, there's the prologue set 2 years before the story takes place, where you play as Vaughn's brother. 9 handles things a lot tighter. There's no time to dive into lengthy tutorials. Everything must happen now. We need to get the princess. We need to escape. We need to survive. 9 is far more economical than 12. Now, is being economical with your plot important for an RPG? Particularly when you're trying to balance open world mechanics, tutorials, minigames, world building. I mean, we're not setting out to write a 2-hour movie here. Much like Final Fantasy VII's bombing mission, 9 opens with a daring action, whereas Final Fantasy VIII is a slower burn, with tutorials to grind through. Paired with the slower pace of day-to-day school life and playing the role of a student overcoming tests, perhaps the pace suits that particular game, though some would argue its opening is a little too pedestrian. My point is, 9 is a tremendous benchmark of what you can achieve in an hour or two. A fantastic combination of storytelling and gameplay, expertly laying down the plot's foundations while paying service to new gameplay mechanics and minigames. A perfect synthesis, and, in my eyes at least, something to aspire to.